Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct today from Black Facts Headquarters Central with the daily news, the daily views, and of course, an African proverb for the day. You know it, it's the only way. Got to start our day just right. And we can't be really uptight if we're going to start it right. So, first things first, you know what I want. Give us a like if you're watching on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. And no matter what platform you're viewing us on, go ahead and spread the word far and wide. Tell your loved ones, tell the ones you fear, tell the ones you hate, tell your friends and your enemies too that there's a way to keep from feeling really blue. All they got to do is just clue in to the Black Facts. So let's get this party started with our proverb of the day. Let's see what we got today. Ooh, I got a bunch of proverbs today to choose from. All right, let's see. How about this one right here? Because we're talking about Sojourner Truth today. Virtue is better than wealth. Virtue is better than wealth. Now, Isabella Baumfree, otherwise known as Sojourner Truth, has passed into the realm of the ancestors many years ago. But we know that she is, was, and always will be a star. Absolutely. We know that. And others seem to have started to recognize this as well. And so one of the things we're going to learn about Sojourner Truth is that not only did she do things back in the day, she's still making waves right now here in the present. And we'll see some examples of that as you watch the slideshow. Pay close attention and you may get a clue as to what Sojourner's been doing today. Meanwhile, let's pick up where we left off. We had just finished reading a letter by Phoebe H.M. Stickney talking about Sojourner Truth. At the time the foregoing letter was received in 1863. Oh, push that button over there. Sojourner thought herself too old and infirm to either labor or lecture. But as the war of the rebellion, which was then stirring the pulses of the nation so deeply, progressed, she experienced a new baptism, so to speak, of physical and mental vigor, which enabled her to take an active part. Oops, almost forgot. Matter of fact, I did forget to do a transition. All right, here we go. Try this again. Oh. All right, even better yet. Now, there we go. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Now, where was I at? She experienced a new baptism, so to speak, of physical and mental vigor, which enabled her to take an active part in many of its stirring scenes. She received her commission from Abraham Lincoln and labored in the hospitals and among the freedmen for 4 years. Since the war, her life has been one of activity. Now, in 1878, she oversees her own household matters and often gives 3 public lectures in a week. Within the past year, she has held meetings in 36 towns in Michigan. Her health is good. Her eyesight, for many years defective, has returned. Her gray locks are being succeeded by a luxuriant growth of black hair without the use of any renovator than that which kind nature furnishes. She hopes that natural teeth will supersede the necessity of using false ones. May her ardent wish be realized. Her mental capacities are becoming intensified. A Chicago lady wrote to her asking for a thought to inspire and cheer her on her life journey. Sojourner responded as follows: God is from everlasting to everlasting. There was no beginning till sin came. All that had a beginning will have an end. Truth burns up error. God is the great house that will hold all his children. We dwell in him as the fishes in the sea. Of the fashionable so-called religious world, she says, it is empty as the barren fig tree, possessing nothing but leaves. This is Sojourner Truth at a century old. Would you like to meet her? Signed, the author. And now we begin the narrative of Sojourner Truth, her birth and parentage. The subject of this biography, Sojourner Truth, as she now calls herself, but whose name originally was Isabella, was born, as near as she can now calculate, between the years 1797 and 1800. She was the daughter of James and Betsy, slaves of one Colonel Ardenborough, Hurley, Ulster County, New York. Colonel Ardenburgh belonged to that class of people called Low Dutch. Of her first master, she can give no account, as she must have been a mere infant when he died, and she, with her parents and some 10 or 12 other fellow human chattels, became the legal property of his son, Charles Ardenburgh. She distinctly remembers hearing her father and mother say that their lot was a fortunate one, as Master Charles was the best of the family, being, comparatively speaking, a kind master to his slaves. James and Betsy, having by their faithfulness, docility, and respectful behavior won his particular regard, received from him particular favors, among which was a lot of land lying back on the slope of a mountain, whereby improving the pleasant evenings and Sundays, they managed to raise a little tobacco, corn, or flax, which they exchanged for extras in the articles of food or clothing for themselves and their children. She has no remembrance that Saturday afternoon was ever added to their own time, as it is by some masters in the southern states. Accommodations. Among Isabella's earliest recollections was the removal of her master, Charles Ardenburgh, into his new house, which he had built for a hotel soon after the decease of his father. A cellar under this hotel was assigned to his slaves as their sleeping apartment. All the slaves he possessed of both sexes sleeping, as is quite common in a state of slavery, in the very same room. She carries in her mind to this day a vivid picture of this dismal chamber, its only lights consisting of a few panes of glass through which she thinks the sun never shone, but with thrice reflected rays, and the space between the loose boards of the floor and the uneven earth below was often filled with mud and water, the uncomfortable splashings of which were as annoying as its noxious vapors must have been chilling. As its noxious vapors must have been chilling and fatal to health. She shudders even now to think of the she shudders even now as she goes back in memory and revisits this cellary and sees its inmates of both sexes and all ages sleeping on those damp boards like the horse with a little straw and a blanket. And she wonders not at the rheumatisms and fever sores and palsies that distorted the limbs and racked the bodies of those fellow slaves in afterlife. Still, she does not attribute this cruelty, for cruelty it certainly is to be so unmindful of the health and comfort of any being, leaving entirely out of sight his more important part, his everlasting interest. So much to any innate or constitutional cruelty of the master as to that gigantic inconsistency, that inherited habit among slaveholders of expecting a willing and intelligent obedience from the slave because he is a man. At the same time, everything belonging to the soul harrowing system does its best to crush the last vestige of a man within him. And when it is crushed, and often before, he is denied the comforts of life on the plea that he knows neither the want nor the use of them, and because he is considered to be little more or little less than a beast. Her brothers and sisters. Isabella's father was very tall and straight when young, which gave him the name of Boomfree, Low Dutch for tree. At least this is Sojourner's pronunciation of it, and by this name he usually went. The most familiar appellation of her mother was Mau Mau Bet. She was the mother of some 10 or 12 children, though Sojourner is far from knowing the exact number of her brothers and sisters, she being the youngest save one, and all older than herself, having been sold before her remembrance. She was privileged to behold 6 of them while she remained a slave. Of the 2 that immediately preceded her in age, a boy of 5 years and a girl of 3, who were sold when she was an infant, she heard much, and she wishes that all who would fain believe that slave parents have not natural affection for their offspring could have listened as she did while Boomfree and Mau Mau Bet, their dark cellar lighted by a blazing pine knot, would sit for hours recalling and recounting every endearing as well as harrowing circumstance that taxed memory could supply from the history of those dear departed ones of whom they had been robbed and for whom their hearts still bled. Among the rest, they would relate how the little boy, on the last morning he was with them, arose with the birds, kindled a flower, calling for his Mau Mau to come, for all was now ready for her, little dreaming of the dreadful separation which was so near at hand, but of which his parents had an uncertain but all the more cruel foreboding. There was snow on the ground at the time of which we are speaking, and a large, old-fashioned sleigh was seen to drive up to the door of the late Colonel Ardenburgh. This event was noticed with childish pleasure by the unsuspicious boy, but when he was taken and put into the sleigh and saw his little sister actually shut and locked into the sleigh box, his eyes were at once opened to their intentions, and like a frightened deer, he sprang from the sleigh and running into the house, concealed himself under a bed. But this availed him little. He was reconveyed to the sleigh and separated forever from those whom God had constituted his natural guardians and protectors, and who should have found him in return a stay, and a staff to them in their declining years. But I make no comments on facts like these, knowing that the heart of every slave parent will make its own comments, involuntarily and correctly, as soon as each heart shall make the case its own. Those who are not parents will draw their conclusions from the promptings of humanity and philanthropy. These, enlightened by reason and revelation, are also unerring. And we will end right there, and we'll pick up next time with on her religious instruction. All right. So you see that if you're watching on YouTube, the image you're seeing on the screen right now is is the logo for the Mars Pathfinder mission from NASA, the NASA and the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab. And as you can see, there's looks like a little car with 6 wheels on it down there on the ground going across the land. And that, my friends, is called Sojourner. Yes. And so we still have Sojourner with us even in the present. Now, this particular Mars lander left Earth back in 1997. So it's been gone for quite a while now. But it did make it to Mars. So Sojourner Truth has left the house physically here on Earth, but also into outer space as well, because that Mars rover that was named after Sojourner Truth. So I find it interesting that we have these celestial bodies and or celestial objects, sometimes these exploration missions, etc., named after various people or connected with various people, like Louis Armstrong, and even, as we'll find later, Mary Fields. So in the meanwhile, we'll be black tonight at 9 o'clock. Between now and then, we like you to do a couple things. Number one, if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. And of course, we do need everybody out there to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will leave it at that. If you want to make donations, there's plenty of opportunities to do that as well. You can become a sustaining member quite easily by going to our website, blakfacts.org. Donate button at the top right-hand corner. Peace out without a doubt. And we'll just send a greeting over here to Berhane Selassie. We see you out there, Berhane.